My dad said, "Bring back the purse," or "Don't come back." So I showed him why I never would. They said I took the purse, not just any purse, my mother's. The navy moo one she kept tucked under her dresser like it held the bones of our family history. They said I must have come back after the funeral home took her, let myself in, took what wasn't mine, that I stole from a woman whose hands I once held through chemo, through grief, through the quietest winters of her life. They didn't yell, that would have been easier. No, they looked at me like I was something foul they couldn't name. My sister Janet with her arms crossed, her voice all careful concern. My father Frank with his throat clears and his silence that screamed louder than anything. The same father who taught me never to take what wasn't given. The same sister who once stole my diary in ninth grade and laughed when I cried. They said if the purse turned up, I should just bring it back. No trouble, no drama. Maybe they added, I should stop coming around for a while. Space would be good for everyone. I nodded. I said nothing. But something inside me cracked that day, not from guilt because I had none, but from the way they looked through me, like I had no weight in the room I was born in. I left their house with my dignity barely intact and a question burning so hot it hurt to swallow. How fast can the people who raised you decide you're no longer one of them? The truth is, I didn't take it, but I knew who did. And what I had was something they didn't know existed. Something my mother had quietly left behind in case her memory failed her, or someone failed her. A soft-spoken goodbye in the form of a camera and a flash drive the size of a postage stamp. This story isn't about a purse. It's about trust, the kind you think is unshakable until it's tested, the kind built across decades of birthday cards and bedtime stories, then shattered in one conversation over chipped coffee mugs and cold accusations. And it's about what you do when the truth isn't enough. I didn't come back for revenge. I didn't show the video to humiliate anyone. I came back because they made me look my dying mother in the face, at least the memory of her, and say I'd never betray her. And when they doubted that, I had no choice but to show them who really did. So if you've ever been blamed for something you didn't do, if you've ever stood in the ruins of your childhood home and realized the people inside no longer see you as theirs, if you've ever been called a liar by the same voice that once read you to sleep, stay with me. Because by the end of this story, you'll understand that survival sometimes doesn't mean proving them wrong. It means proving to yourself you were right to walk away. And if that's something you've had to do too, just leave a dot in the comments. That's all, a single period. I'll know what it means. The last time I stood in my parents' house, it still smelled like lemon polish and furnace dust. That smell clung to the air like memory, old, stubborn, and impossible to clean away. Mom used to wipe the baseboards every Saturday, said a dusty house was an unloved house. Even when her hands had turned to paper-thin vein maps, she still scrubbed with that lemon oil like she could hold time back a little longer. She had only been gone 4 days. 4 days since the funeral. 4 days since the woman who taught me how to braid my hair and slice apples with the skin still on was lowered into the ground beneath a headstone no one had prepared for. The service was small, almost insultingly so, just family. A neighbor brought a lemon pound cake, maybe out of habit more than sympathy. No one touched it. It sat on the kitchen counter like a stand-in for the grief no one wanted to talk about. I didn't stay at the house. I didn't even ask. Instead, I booked a room at the Maple Inn, 2 miles from the street I'd grown up on. A room with floral curtains and a bed that creaked like knees too long on tile. It wasn't home, but it was neutral ground. That mattered more now than comfort. That morning, I came by to help sort through Mom's things. That's what I told myself, at least. When I stepped through the front door, everything was too still, too staged. Dad was in his recliner, his throne, really, flipping through a flyer for window replacements he'd never actually buy. His glasses sat low on his nose, his coffee already half cold. He looked up when I entered, nodded once. No smile, no words, just acknowledgement like I was the mailman. "Morning," I offered. He grunted, maybe in return, or maybe in disappointment. It was hard to tell with him. My sister Janet, who now goes by Janet Lee since marrying Doug, like she'd legally distanced herself from childhood, was already in Mom's bedroom, elbow deep in drawers. I watched her from the doorway. Her posture said she wasn't looking. She was claiming. Paper. She had a blue purse. Janet muttered, not turning. You know the one. Always kept it under the dresser. It's gone. I knew that purse. Navy leather, soft with age, always zipped shut. Mom used to hold it close, like it carried something more than grocery receipts and old tissues, something sacred. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The question wasn't really a question. Then Dad spoke. His voice was flat, like paper left out in the sun. You had the key last month when you took her to the eye doctor. I gave it back before I left, I said, quiet, careful, truthful. Janet straightened, finally looked at me, her expression unreadable, blank but dangerous. She trusted you with it. That sentence hung in the air like smoke in a closed room. I didn't know what they were dancing around yet, but the music was familiar. Accusation wrapped in civility, suspicion dressed up as concern. My chest tightened the way it always had in that house, like breathing required permission I hadn't earned. Dad cleared his throat again, closed the flyer. Not saying anything happened, he said, but if something did, if you came by after the funeral home and, saw it, Janet cut in, arms crossed now. We just want it back. No drama, no police, it's just family. I could hear the lie in that word. Family. I looked at them both. Two people with the same blood type as mine. Two people who once sat beside me in a hospital waiting room when Mom had her first surgery. And now they were staring at me like I had broken into a stranger's house and stolen silverware. I didn't take it, I said. Dad nodded slowly. Not like he believed me, like he'd expected me to lie. Well, he said, if it turns up, bring it back. And maybe take a little space, Janet added, softer but sharper. We all need some room to grieve. Grief, apparently, was territorial. I left not because I had anything to hide, but because I knew they'd already decided I did. And maybe the hardest thing about coming home after death is realizing that what died wasn't just the person in the casket. It was the last thread that held your family together. I didn't sleep that night. The motel heater made more noise than warmth, coughing through the hours with a rusted wheeze. I lay on the stiff mattress, eyes wide, listening to the wind batter the windows, wondering how a house that raised me could now push me out with such polite cruelty. But the next morning, I went back, not because I wanted to, because I promised her. Mom, she asked me weeks before she passed to help sort through the photo box, the one she kept in labeled bins by year. Even as her memory frayed, she still organized what she could. So I returned. The same hallway. Same cold silence. Dad was at the kitchen table when I walked in. Same chipped mug with the Cincinnati Reds logo, same flannel shirt with buttons missing. The robe hung open like a curtain to a man half-dressed in grief, half-dressed in guilt he didn't have words for. Sit, he said, not looking up. I did. Janet came in a few minutes later, yellow notepad in hand, a Ziploc bag of receipts in the other. She didn't greet me. Just sat across the table, arranging the items like she was prepping for a court deposition. She always did have a flair for drama, cloaked in practicality. Dad cleared his throat. We talked last night, he said. Janet nodded. Mom told me a few weeks before she passed that she was putting her valuables in that purse, the blue one. She even mentioned savings bonds, she added, voice even, like she was delivering evidence to a jury that had already made up its mind. I blinked. Savings bonds? She didn't want them lying around, Janet continued, flipping through her notepad like proof would fall out. She wanted everything kept together, and the last person she saw alone was you. There it was, the accusation, no longer dressed in concern, just laid out plain. Dad folded his hands. We're not trying to make this ugly, but there's no sign of forced entry, and only one person had the key. I stared at the grains in the wooden table. Familiar. Countless dinners, spills, burn marks. I used to trace them with my finger when I was anxious. I did that now. This isn't just about a purse, Janet said, her voice softer, but sharper too. It's about trust. And then she went for the wound. You weren't here when her hip broke. You weren't here when she forgot how to call 911. I was. I sent money, I replied, voice shaking, every month. Money doesn't sit by a bedside at 3 a.m. when someone's crying and doesn't remember where they are, she said. Dad raised his hand. Let's stay on topic. I'm on topic, Janet snapped. She wasn't here, but now that Mom's gone, here she is, showing up, just in time to dig through what's left. My palms were flat on the table. I could feel the imprint of the grain pushing into my skin. A part of me wanted to scream, but another part knew it wouldn't help. Not in this house, not with these people. I don't want her arrested, Janet turned to Dad. But if she has the purse, we deserve to know. He nodded once. We're not making it legal, but bring it back if you took it. And then Janet added, it's probably best you leave after. Just like that, thrown out of a life I once belonged to, by two people who had once hugged me after scraped knees and first heartbreaks. I stood. You think I stole from her? You're the only one who had access, Janet said. What else are we supposed to think? I opened my mouth to argue, to plead, to ask, how dare you? But the words stuck. Then something in me, something quiet, maybe strong, simply nodded. All right. Janet blinked. So you have it? I said, I don't. Then why? I said, I don't have it. I repeated, but I understand what you've decided. I turned toward the front hallway. My feet moved on instinct, past the coat rack, the photo of us at Lake Erie in '93, the cracked tile Dad always meant to replace. Janet's voice followed me. We don't want drama, Sally. We just want the truth. I paused at the door, hand on the knob. That's what I want too, I said. I'm just sorry you don't recognize it. I didn't cry on the drive back, not yet. The pain hadn't crested, it just sat there like a stone in my chest, heavy, unmovable. Back in the motel, I sat on the bed and stared at the floral comforter for a long time. The pattern reminded me of something Mom would have picked out 20 years ago, before all the forgetting, before the shrinking into a stranger, before I became suspect in my own bloodline. What hurts isn't just being accused, it's realizing they never even asked if it was true. They just believed it, because somewhere along the way, I stopped being part of us and became them, or worse, her, the outsider. The room was cold again that night. The heater worked hard, but the air stayed sharp, like someone had left a window cracked open into November. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, shoes off, purse on the floor, hands folded in my lap like a child waiting for punishment. I kept hearing Janet's voice. If she has the purse, we deserve to know. And Dad's silence, that was worse. Not because he was angry, he didn't get angry, he just decided. But so had Mom. I opened my suitcase, unzipped the inner lining, and pulled out a small padded envelope. Inside was a flash drive and a faded receipt from Best Buy dated 7 weeks before. Tucked beneath it, a folded slip of paper. My name written in her handwriting, crooked, slanted, the pen dragging a little more than it used to. I read the note again, even though I knew every word by heart, in case I forget where I put things again. Thank you for helping me feel safe. Mom. I could see her clearly that day. She was in her robe, standing in the kitchen, turning in circles, panicked because she couldn't find her wedding ring. We found it in the freezer. She laughed, embarrassed. Then she said something that stuck in my chest like a thumbtack. Or maybe someone else is moving my things. I don't know anymore, but I want to. That's when she let me buy the camera. A small indoor cam no bigger than a salt shaker. I placed it high on the bedroom hutch, tucked behind porcelain figurines and an old perfume bottle she hadn't used in years. I had watched the dresser, the mirror, the room where she kept her most precious things. At the time, I told myself I was just helping her feel better. I didn't know I'd be using it to defend myself. Back in the motel, I plugged the flash drive into my laptop. The fan whirred louder than usual, like it understood the weight of what I was about to see. There were dozens of files, each one time-stamped, quiet, still. I scrolled through until I found the one labeled the morning after Mom passed. The same morning, Janet said she came over just to sit in her room one last time. I clicked. The screen filled with grayscale footage. There was Janet. Gray sweater, hair pulled back tight, moving quickly, not mournfully. Her hands opened drawer after drawer like she had a shopping list in her head. Then she crouched, opened the dresser cabinet, paused, and pulled out the blue purse. She unzipped it, peeked inside, no hesitation. Then she slid it into her large shoulder tote like it was nothing. A few seconds later, Frank, Dad, appeared in the doorway. He stopped, looked at her, looked at the bag, then turned and walked away. No words. No protest, no shock, just complicity. I watched the video twice, then sat back, the laptop warm against my legs, the note from Mom still open on the bed beside me. They hadn't just accused me, they'd known. They'd always known, and they'd still made me sit at that kitchen table like a suspect in a crime they'd already committed. I didn't sleep. The next morning, I didn't knock. I walked into the house like I used to after school, quietly, nervously, hoping not to disturb anything. Dad was in his recliner again, sipping from a different mug. This one read, "One, Grandpa." He never used the title out loud. Janet was at the dining table, sorting envelopes into piles, bills probably, or more records. When she looked up, her eyes narrowed. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. The question was already in the air. Why are you here? I held the laptop under one arm, a black cord trailing from my pocket like a leash. "I won't stay long," I said. Neither of them responded. I set the laptop on the dining table, the same one we used to carve pumpkins on in October, the same one Mom once scorched with a candle and then lied about it just to protect the story behind the moment. Janet folded her arms. "You came to confess?" I opened the laptop. "No," I said. "I came to show you something." The screen lit up. I clicked the file, maximized it. No narration, no introduction, just the footage. Janet's voice cracked first. "What is this?" Frank leaned forward, squinting, then froze. There she was. There they were. The truth didn't scream, it whispered. In high-definition silence. Janet taking the purse, Frank watching and walking away. The video ended. The screen went black. The room didn't. Her arms dropped, mouth open, no words. She looked at him, then at me. For a full 5 seconds after the video ended, no one said a word. Not Janet, not Dad, not me. The room felt thick, like it had filled with smoke only I could see. The laptop screen had gone black, but its glow still lingered on their faces, that faint shimmer of shame that neither of them seemed ready to claim. Janet's arms had dropped. She looked smaller, not younger, just reduced. Her mouth opened, then closed. She blinked, looked at Frank as if expecting him to speak first, but he didn't. She swallowed. Her voice cracked, unfamiliar in its weakness. "I could have had it. Back in the spring, when I took her to the doctor, she told me she didn't want you to have it." Frank didn't move, didn't nod, didn't breathe. "I didn't steal it," she added, quick now, desperate. "She told me where it was. I assumed she told you too." I stared at her. "She didn't." That's all I said, and it was enough to make her flinch. Frank finally spoke, quiet, even. "You had no right to record us." I turned to him. "She asked me to." He blinked. "What?" "She asked me," I repeated. "She said she was misplacing things. She wanted to feel safe. She didn't trust her own memory anymore. She didn't want to wonder if it was her losing things or someone else moving them." His eyes narrowed, but not in suspicion, in defense, as if shielding himself from the fact that even his wife no longer trusted what that house had become. Janet shook her head. "You waited to show this. You let us walk right into it." "No," I said, my voice low but firm. "You ran into it." I just pressed play. She looked away, like the words hit somewhere real, like they scraped across something she'd spent years pretending didn't exist. Dad set his mug down carefully. "What do you want, Sally?" he asked. "You got your little reveal, so what now?" I turned to face him fully. "I don't want anything." His eyebrows rose. "I'm not here to get even," I said. "I didn't show you that video for revenge." Janet scoffed, bitter. "Then why come at all?" "Because you accused me," I said, as you looked me in the eye in the house I grew up in and called me a thief. You made me sit at this table where we used to carve pumpkins and write Christmas cards and pretend I was someone I've never been. I paused, let that hang in the air, the way their accusations had. "You say you want the truth, but you only wanted it until it got inconvenient." I closed the laptop. The snap of the lid echoed like a slap. Dad leaned back. "Well, I guess it's all out now." He sounded tired, but not sorry. Never sorry. I slid the laptop back into its sleeve. "No," I said, "not all of it." Janet narrowed her eyes. "What else is there?" I looked at her, met her stare. "I'm not the one who should be asking that." Then I turned, walked toward the door. No yelling, no slammed fists, no big dramatic exit, just silence. The same silence they'd used to shut me out. Now I gave it back. When I reached the hallway, I didn't turn around. Janet called after me once, low and sharp. "Sally, I didn't get an answer. Sometimes walking away is the loudest thing you can do." 2 days passed. No one called. No one came by. I stayed in the motel, bag packed but unmoved. I hadn't booked a flight, not because I was waiting, but because for once I wasn't in a hurry to go where no one expected me. On the third day, I walked to the post office. I mailed a small padded envelope, no return address, just 2 names on the label: Janet Lee and Frank Whitmore. Inside, a printed copy of Mom's note, the one asking me to help her remember. A still frame from the video, Janet holding the purse, zipper halfway open, and a single handwritten sentence from me. This was never about the purse. Because it never was. The purse didn't matter. What mattered was that Mom trusted me when she couldn't even trust her own memory. What mattered was that I came when they didn't. And what mattered now was that I could leave with my truth intact. 6 months later, I flew back to Ohio, just for a day. The trees had started to green again, and the cemetery sat on a small hill above the main road, where traffic passed like wind, constant, indifferent. I didn't tell anyone I was coming. No one would have come anyway. Mom's headstone looked the same, only now the grass had grown and soft around its edges. Margaret Maggie Whitmore, beloved mother. Quiet strength, 1941 to 2023. The words felt truer now than they ever had, not because I needed them to, but because I finally understood what she meant by quiet strength. It wasn't about enduring, it was about choosing what not to carry anymore. I knelt beside the stone and placed a small bouquet of yellow freesia. Mom never liked roses, said they came with too much performance. From my coat pocket, I pulled out the flash drive. I'd wrapped it in a soft cloth, the way she used to wrap our ornaments at Christmas. Delicate things, she said, should be protected, even when they're not in use, especially then. I set it gently at the base of the headstone. No box, no note, just the thing itself. Still, quiet, still containing everything they didn't want to see. You were right to be afraid, I said aloud. Not loudly, just enough to carry. Even if it didn't, a few rows away I noticed something new. The plot next to hers had a stone already placed, not carved all the way, but enough to see, reserved Frank Whitmore. It was just sitting there, waiting. Like a bookmark in a book no one wanted to finish. The man who raised me would lie beside the woman who once feared him enough to hide the truth in a drawer, under a porcelain dog, beneath a camera no bigger than a salt shaker. He'd never reached out after the envelope, never emailed, never called. Janet had just once. An email with no subject line, just a sentence: "You win. Enjoy what's left." No apology, no denial, just bitterness. There was no follow-up, and no reply from me. Some silences don't deserve to be filled. That night, back home in Arizona, I sat on the edge of my bed and opened the laptop one last time. Not out of anger, not out of grief, but because I needed to close the drawer. The one left open too long in my heart. The folder was still there, still untouched, except for the clip I'd used. But now, I opened a file I hadn't watched before, dated 3 days before Mom died. The camera caught her at her vanity. Morning light spilled through the window, soft and dust-filled. She was brushing her hair, long, slow strokes like the motion helped her remember who she was. I hadn't known the camera recorded sound that day, but she spoke. Not loud, not rehearsed, just a whisper, like to someone in the next room. "Sally, I hope this camera makes you feel better too. I'm sorry your sister makes you feel small. You were always the one who saw me," she said it and kept brushing, like nothing had happened, like it was just another thought in the current of her fading mind. But it reached me across the months like a rope in the dark. I sat still for a long time, then I closed the laptop, carefully, like something precious, not because I needed to prove anything to anyone anymore, but because I finally realized something. I had already been seen by the only person who mattered. Mom had known, even in the haze of memory loss. She knew who showed up, who helped her find the ring in the freezer, who stayed, who pressed record, not to catch someone, but to protect her from the forgetting. They didn't ask what happened. They didn't care what I'd done. They just decided. And when the truth showed up, time-stamped, unedited, undeniable, they still didn't say sorry. They just looked away. Not because they didn't believe it, but because deep down, they always had. That's the thing no one tells you about betrayal. Sometimes it doesn't come with shouting, it comes with shrugs, with cold coffee and silent nods, with we just want the truth only if it fits their version. But I didn't stay in that room. I didn't chase closure. I chose something quieter, something heavier, but also more honest. I chose to leave. I don't know if you've ever been called a thief in your own home. I don't know if someone's ever made you doubt what you know in your bones to be true, but if you've ever walked away quietly but with your head held steady, if you've ever carried the truth alone, just long enough for it to carry you back, then you already know. If someone you love once looked at you like a stranger, if the people who raised you were the first to doubt you, then I want you to hear this. You don't have to carry the weight of their silence. You don't have to stay in rooms where the truth is unwelcome. I learned that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is leave quietly and let the facts speak louder than the begging ever could. So if you've ever walked away, not because you gave up, but because you finally loved yourself enough to stop proving, just leave a dot below, a single period. I'll know you were here, and that maybe, like me, you finally chose peace over permission.